3 out of 4 people in the world create to-do lists. If you're not familiar with what a to-do list is, it's a breakdown of all tasks that you are supposed to finish within the hour, within your work shift, or within the day. They are commonly used for productivity, reminding us of the things that we are supposed to do in a day. Let's say you were tasked to write some emails to important clients, throw out the trash, take the dog out for a walk. Perhaps you have some specific tasks you need to finish at work. All of these can be written in your to-do list. Once you tick off these tasks, it even feels satisfying. However, something that isn't as common as a to-do list is a not to-do list. It basically does what it says on its name. It is a list that you make of actions, routines, and activities that you desire to avoid. It's not a standard to-do list, so that's why. And they claim that if you look at your to-do list for the past month, there would be 1 or 2 items that you keep adding to it. These items never get done, don't have any deadlines, and you can simply delegate them to someone else or change your routine so you can probably batch complete them. However, what this actually does is cause you to spend all of your time thinking about these items, which is counterproductive. This list is probably much more useful than a standard to-do list because it forces you to spend less time on things you shouldn't be doing and more time on things you should be doing. Let's create some examples in order for us to simplify things down and help us understand things with the to-do list and the not to-do list better. Meet Steve. Steve is a huge fan of video games and he plays them on a daily basis. However, he must also study for a significant test that will be coming, as the outcome of which will have a significant impact on his future. Therefore, Steve makes it a priority to conduct some studying. On that particular day, Steve picks up books and studies for a period of 45 minutes. After that, he takes a brief pause, during which time he makes the decision to engage in some gaming activity. On the other hand, he became so engrossed in the game that he spent the next 3 hours playing it, and he did not engage in any extra studying afterward. Even if Steve was only able to study for a quarter of an hour, he can consider the work on his list to have been partially completed. However, with only that much time spent studying, he will not be able to succeed in the test. Therefore, Steve decides to take on the task of studying in a somewhat different manner the following day. He makes the decision to compile a list of things that should not be done as well. In addition, he jotted down the following rule: no video games until 7 p.m. Steve heads to his study space, where he works for a quarter of an hour before taking a short break. On the other hand, he does not use his computer as much as he did the day before because he forbade himself to play games at that hour of the day. Instead, he makes advantage of his break time to get a sip of water and jot down a few of the ideas that have occurred to him while he has been studying. After that, he goes back to studying and is successful in doing so for a total of 3 hours on that particular day. It is never sufficient to simply say, "I must do this," whenever you have a goal that you want to achieve. However, it should also include the phrase, "I must not do that." Both the things you want to do and the things you shouldn't do are the two sides of the same coin and are intertwined with one another. Allow me to provide you with another example. Suppose you are interested in purchasing a particular item. You are aware that the shop just down the road is the sole location where one can get this item. Therefore, you jot it down on your to-do list. Get that item from the store. On the other hand, the road leading there is lined with other businesses, but none of them sell the item you are looking for. You are able to stop at any of them along the way, and in the end, you will arrive at the store that is located at the end of the road. What would happen though if you included something like "don't stop at the other shops" on your list of things you shouldn't do? You would reach the store down the road in a far shorter amount of time and with much less effort. The metaphor of the convenience store at the end of the road can be used to any objective you may have, and each of those other stores is a distraction that will slow down your approach toward the objective. Therefore, if you merely want to exercise, you wouldn't be able to achieve your fitness goals. However, you should generally stay away from McDonald's and donuts as much as possible. You shouldn't rely solely on an alarm to bring you out of bed at a reasonable hour in the morning. Before you go to bed, you should stay away from anything that could wake you up, including stimulating activities and bright lights. In addition, you shouldn't just study if you want to do well on your next test, but you should also stay away from things like watching Netflix and playing video games. Sometimes, the decisions you make about what you won't do are even more important than the actions you do choose to do. When you reduce the amount of one activity, you actually increase the amount of another behavior. Because of this, there will now be an empty space that must be filled in some way, shape, or form. In addition, by reducing the number of activities you participate in, you create space in which you may give your complete attention to the subject matter that is of the utmost significance. Some people could argue that having restrictions is a bad thing, and that having complete liberty is the optimal state to be in. To be sure, not everyone has the luxury of deciding when and how to carry out a task according to their own preferences. Having an excessive number of available options, on the other hand, does come with certain drawbacks. After passing the test and completing his education, our good friend Steve started working as a freelance copywriter. He can now work from his laptop whenever and wherever he wants, which gives him a lot more flexibility. He has free reign over the time and location of the meeting. However, all of a sudden, Steve has a lot of freedom, and it actually causes him to become immobile. He continues to put off his task because he isn't constrained in any way by his circumstances. He is constantly encouraging himself by saying things like, "It's fine, I can always do this later." And when later arrives, no job is completed because Steve could always do it at some other time. Therefore, there is no point in doing it. As a consequence of this, he frequently experiences feelings of guilt. The idea that he ought to be working at this very moment is resonating in his head on a continuous basis, and as a result of this guilt, he is unable to even have pleasure in his spare time. When we have the opportunity to accomplish whatever we want, we frequently choose to do nothing. Or, instead, we select the course of action that provides us with the least amount of difficulty. Which activity would you prefer to do each and every day if you were forced to pick just one of these four options: to study, to work, to watch television, or to play video games? It's possible that you'll make the smart choice and decide to combine your studies with a part-time job at first. However, as time went on, you would inevitably gravitate more towards watching television and playing video games. This is due to the fact that when given the opportunity to make your own decisions, most people go for the option that requires the least amount of work. If you are restricted in your actions and cannot do everything you choose, then selecting the alternative that is more challenging becomes a lot less challenging for you. Because working or studying is the only thing you can do, you won't need as much self-control to get started with either one of those activities. In addition, you do not have to abstain from any other activities that can be a source of temptation for you. Soon after, Steve had the epiphany that the absence of any constraints constituted the problem. He literally had to make a decision every few minutes between his work and his free time, and because spending time enjoying oneself was the simpler choice, the end result was that very little work was completed. As a result, Steve crafted a one-of-a-kind list of things to avoid doing. These were the boundaries that he established for himself. Only work from the home office, never work past 7 p.m., no internet, TV, or video games until 5 p.m. It is reasonable to assume that Steve will become irritated by these restrictions given that he does not have as much flexibility as he did in the past. Despite this, they were able to free him. He ceased preoccupying his mind with the question of whether or not he ought to be working. Instead, he now only abides by the guidelines he has established for himself. When the clock strikes 10 in the morning, Steve is well aware that he is unable to use the internet, watch television, or play video games. In addition, the fact that he doesn't have a lot of other things to do makes it much simpler for him to do his tasks. Now that he is aware that he will be able to still have fun, albeit at a later time, he does not feel as though he is being cheated out of his free time. And if it's already 8 in the evening, Steve has no need to feel bad about the fact that he is not working. Instead, he is in the position to take pleasure in his spare time without worrying about anything. All of this is thanks to the new limitations he imposed. Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention is that there are instances when we shouldn't just limit our bad actions, but we should also limit our positive behaviors as well. One example of a healthy habit would be to regularly work on improving one's piano playing. But if you already have other commitments or other activities that are more essential right now, then playing the piano is nothing more than a distraction for you. It's not any more productive than lounging about in front of the television. Both of these activities will prevent you from focusing on the primary task at hand. Because of this, there will be times when you need to include some of your positive behaviors on a list of those that should not be done. Nevertheless, this is one item that should never make it onto your list of things you should avoid doing. And it is to educate oneself on something fresh on a daily basis. Now that you have a good idea on where to start on your not to-do list, be sure to leave a like on this video if you found it useful. Smash the subscribe button and turn on all notifications for more informative and amazing videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time,